Hi, everyone. My name is Kelvin. I'm from the marketing team here at Rival Technologies in Reach3 Insights. Welcome back to Outliers. This is our weekly event series, an educational weekly event series where we chat with marketing and research leaders, to discover new techniques and strategies that we can all use to engage with our customers, gain deeper insights, and of course, drive better business outcomes. If this is your first time, welcome. Today, we're talking about the impact of COVID-19 to qual research. Just some of the things that we're going to be touching on. Exactly, what are the aspects of qual research that are changing during COVID-19? And, we're going to discuss whether those changes are here to stay. Of course, we'll talk tactical here as well and, share best practices in terms of how to use new techniques, new technologies to get deeper and richer qual insights during COVID-19. And then we'll touch on some of the don'ts as well. So what are the the methodologies, the techniques from the traditional qual world that may not be as applicable to the COVID-19 world today? Before I introduce our speaker, I'd like to invite you to join the conversation. So, please feel free to use the chat feature here on Zoom to share your thoughts, share your feedback and your questions. And a bit later, if you're interested, you can ask your question directly to our speaker. So our speaker today is Bala Rajan, who is Senior Vice President at Reach3 Insights. And I'll let him introduce himself in a sec here. But fun fact, Bala is actually calling in from Australia, where it's about 6:03 a.m. right now. Hey, Bala.
Hey, yes, it is nice and early. Yeah.
Thanks again for your time here. To get started, let's just give everyone a quick intro on you. So if you don't mind just talking a little bit about what you do at Reach3 and maybe a little bit about your background in insights.
Sure. Yeah. It does feel a bit strange to introduce myself with you on the call. Kelvin, you and I have worked together for so many years. So yeah, but I'll give it a go. As many might be aware, Reach3 Insights is a consulting arm tied in with Rival Technology, and what we do is provide clients insights and consulting to all aspects of research needs that they might have. We are really proud of the fact that we embrace the conversational insights in what we do, and which is working really well for us to get more out of the consumers in this new method of consumers responding to brands and businesses using their smartphone. A little bit about me. I've done the rounds of working, in small consulting firms to large research agencies, and have been very fortunate that I've been exposed to a lot of global research, so have a really good exposure in many markets, and which continues to stay, which continues to keep me active at the moment, and tend to do a fair bit of global work, and enjoy doing a lot of research here in Australia as well.
Nice. Yeah, thanks for that intro. And yeah, definitely we've worked together for a while now. It's interesting because when COVID started, Reach3 actually saw a big influx of qual-based research projects. Can you explain why that is? Why did brands all of a sudden needed more qual insights?
Yeah, it was a massive influx, wasn't it? So this is a question that does come up in conversations with clients as well, and the underlying essence is that consumers have gone through a dramatic change due to the pandemic and the COVID-19 related changes in lifestyle. So what's emerged, first it was a massively reactive space where consumers are reacting to everything that was pushed down their way, restrictions, ways of doing, new ways of doing the same things, learning about what they can do and what they can't do. And all of that has created this new mindset, and brands and businesses were not prepared or probably wanted to know more about what this new emergent mindset is. And therefore qual. And qual allows you to navigate through how the customer is thinking and what works and what doesn't work. And that led to the dramatic increase of qualitative briefs. Also, there were lots of nuances in behavior, and it's best explained with an example, which is many people do enjoy going grocery shopping. At the end of the week, it's a part of the routine. They stand in front of the aisles and get inspired on what needs to come, and it gives them meal ideas and all of that. And not having the chance to do that has changed the way people shop and how they think about groceries. Things started becoming a little more stock standard, where the applications and were recommending that which products they should buy, and not everyone is comfortable, familiar, or even enjoys that process as much. So they've had to change. All of this has given us this new consumer, this new mindset, and all brands now need to understand this new mindset. Even if you knew your consumer, you need to stay on top of what has changed for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even now, like, things are changing week by week. So that ability to understand what the why behind the what, I think it's super critical, and obviously that's something that qual can definitely help with. How is the pandemic impacting how qual is done during COVID? Because I mean, obviously, like, there were, especially during the lockdown, like, there were in-person focus groups, and like even like going to someone's house to watch them do stuff. Like, obviously those things were out of the question. So I was hoping you can just give a quick overview of what were the biggest shifts in terms of how qual research was being conducted.
Yeah, sure. We from what I see, all agencies were doing a little bit of qual online. They were doing a lot of qual online, if not little, even before the pandemic. So it's not that online research just came into the forefront just because of the pandemic. Everyone was dabbling with online qualitative research to a certain degree. However, having to shift it completely to doing it online was a significant change. Obviously, there were some who hadn't done it, and for them it was probably a bigger leap. But doing everything online is a certain shift in mindset, because you're not able to sit in front of the consumer and read into their body language. You're not able to go to consumers' households and see how they stock their pantry. You've got people to tell you what their pantry looks like. That reduces a little bit of the confidence that you might have when you take that information in yourself. So online research is not new to qual, but shifting all your qual online, I think probably was the newness into this whole pandemic driven change. So the thing that I hear from friends who are also qualitative practitioners doing this in other places is the plethora of technology that there is that you not only need to be well versed with qualitative methodologies, you also need to have a really good handle for what each technology can and can't do, so that you're able to stitch up a solution that helps you get to where you want to be by getting to the whys, by not at the price of not being too clunky, at the price of not making it too difficult for you consumers, and also you getting the insights that you're after.
Mhm. Yeah, and it's interesting because one of the things that you told me in the past as well is that it's like, yeah, it's not just migrating, and then to some extent, this move to online actually enabled this kind of like tighter integration between quant and qual. Can you speak more to that?
Of course, yeah, yeah. I forget all the things we talk about, and the doing qual online is one thing, but integrating it with quant suddenly makes everything a little more, so much more powerful. It makes it a little more interesting, and what I mean by that is, let's take a typical example. You know, say we have a couple of ideas we want to test with consumers. You ask people on their preferences, on the scales that you want those ideas measured on. You'd run a quantitative study. You would get people to rate them on appeal, uniqueness, propensity to buy, and once you've identified that there is a certain group of people who are rejectors or acceptors of a certain idea, you want to know more. What technology allows us to do today is you know, asynchronously you can take a certain individual into a qualitative experience and go in and ask them why, and have a moderator there to ask them the reasons for their rejection, or ask them the reasons for their preferences. So just tying in the qual approach with quant, which is seamless, seamlessly moving a consumer from quant to qual, it makes it so much more powerful. Historically, you'd commission a quant project, you'd digest all the information, and then you, based on the learnings, you'd want to commission another qual project. But you don't have to do that anymore. You can set it all up in a way where you minimize the time that the consumer is going to give us or has available, and you can move them from one methodology to another, and make your learning so much more powerful.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Now, what are the consequences in terms of, you know, this move to online? So, you know, I want to hear kind of like the good, the bad, and maybe even the ugly, right? So can you share some thoughts on that?
Yeah. It's well, it's certainly not all good. That's for sure. But let's start with the positives. The positives of online research is that you are able to do things at scale. So qualitative research has been tightly defined, has been small, and that's been qual. But that scale can be big if you want it to be. You can put larger groups of people and use technology to connect with a larger group of people and generate those insights. In the absence, for some, in the absence of physically being in contact with the consumer, you can have a larger group of people, which kind of reassures you that you're covering more ground. You're getting all consumer groups, and you're able to learn a little bit more. So there's that. There's the other benefit is that you can do things a bit faster. With online qual, connecting with consumers with the use of the likes of SMS, or you connect to messaging apps, and you can reach out to consumers a lot quicker. So firing up a qualitative study has certainly become a lot faster. In many occasions, it is it's cost beneficial as well. So it doesn't cost as much as traditional qual research does, because remember, with the face-to-face focus group, you are out you're out and about. You're either visiting consumers at their place of convenience, or you're sitting in focus group rooms. The clients need to travel, sit in the viewing, one-way viewing mirror, watch the groups behind the one-way viewing mirror. Everyone is out and about, and that does take a bit more time than being able to do it online. So there are those three big benefits of doing things online. But the flip side is, when there is tactile elements, you've got a new product, you want consumers to taste, you want consumers to feel. There's a new handset you want consumers to kind of play with and give you feedback on. You can't do that. It's not the same trying to do that online. You can attempt doing it, and it'll give you an illusion that you're learning, but it is not the same. So the tactile element, that you definitely lose that. And qualitative practitioners, you've heard this old adage, which is only 27% of what people say is verbal. There's arguments around whether that's true or not, but just using that to make conversation here, is that when you're not able to see what the consumer is going through, or how they fumble when they're testing a website, or how they go about shopping when they're in store, does reduce the amount of confidence you might have to learn from the consumer.
Right. Yeah. Can you just talk about how you would kind of compensate for that, or how would you address that, that con or that disadvantage?
Yeah, fortunately, there are lots of applications that do bits and bobs really well. So identifying what the priority of your project is, you use applications, you use methodologies that have been proven in over the years, and the combination of using the right tech and the right approach of questioning, or an elicitation exercise, or a creative way to ask the question, helps you compensate that lack, the perceived lack that you might have when you do qualitative research online.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, I want to shift gears here a little bit and talk about best practices. So, obviously you've conducted a lot of mobile-based or online research for qual during COVID-19. So can you share some best practices for us that we need to start thinking about as we're moving to online more and more?
Yeah. Conceptually, first let me talk conceptually. Face-to-face qualitative research is typically designed in a funnel down approach. You'd start with the landscape, you would start with it, then you'd follow it up with an exploration, and then you would get to your the main question, or the diagnostic aspect of the project. And let me use an example here, which is, if you want to talk about how someone buys a product, or you've got a few concepts that you want to test with the consumers or customers, you'd want to start about understanding the landscape. How do you end up using the product? What your preferences are. Then you would go into exploring that. Are there any changes? Are you open to change? Are you looking for something more? Is there a gap? And once you've done that, then you present the ideas or the concepts or hypotheses or whatever it might be, and you want consumers to react. That is a classic qualitative approach. Which is landscape, explore, diagnose. that's the approach you would want to take. But when you do it online, you don't have the luxury of time like the way you do in face-to-face qualitative research. Consumers are either looking at other websites while they are doing a qualitative exercise. There are other things going on. You know, you might be homeschooling and your kids might pop in every few minutes with a question. There are all these realities of consumers. So the one of the main do's that I follow diligently is to flip the order. You flip the approach in online qualitative research. You go in with your best question, or you go in with your most important question up front, and you follow the good old whys of qualitative research thereof. And that still gets you to the same place. And again, using that same example, say you've got three concepts and you show them to consumers, and you ask them if there is a preference, what are their views across those three concepts, and then you ask them why. That gets you to the explore space. And then you continue asking why to answer why is that important to you? What is this product doing? And it helps you build the landscape of what drives consumer in that category or that brand or that product or that instance. So it feels long-winded if you take that approach, but you can do justice to all those areas just by flipping the focus, or flipping the funnel. And it's important to do that though, because worst case scenario, if your consumer is not going to stay with you to complete a 5-day discussion, or stay the whole time to continue chatting with you over a duration of a few days, you still get your main question answered, and you can put in a larger group of people, which gives you the comfort that you probably have picked up all aspects of reactions.
Right. Yeah, I love that concept, like flipping the funnel, just starting with what's most important to you, or what's most interesting to the consumer, just to make sure you get their attention. And then, you can ask more questions a bit later on. I know one thing that you've spoken about in the past as well is being creative in how you ask your questions, right? So, for instance, I've seen you do a lot of like emotional elicitation exercises using images and things like that. So can you speak more about that, like how to ask better questions for online qual or for mobile qual?
Yeah. That should probably go into the same do's and don'ts part of our conversation. I honestly don't know what's happened over the years, but more and more of the qualitative practices that we see, we are not using as much as we did in the past of projective techniques. Projective techniques are a great tool to get people to think a little bit more, get people to talk a little bit more, get people to react to things and tell you why. And bringing those projective techniques into even in the online world or probably even more in the online world is a good idea, because you need to aid consumers to think beyond, because they're not standing in the supermarket aisle. They're probably at their desktop at home. The TV is going on at one end and the kids are screaming at the other, and you're also thinking about what you're going to cook for dinner. And in that headspace, you need to get consumers closer to the category you want to talk to. And using elicitation techniques, using visual photos, using projective techniques, things like house buildings, like Kelly's triad, and so many more. You use those techniques to get consumers to navigate through their thought process and reach out to the bits that's not top of mind. and that gets more from your consumers. And one great example was for a leading toothpaste brand that we were doing research, and people don't really think a lot about buying the toothpaste when you're cleaning your teeth. But when you're at but people do spend time to evaluate what's on the shelf when you're in store. So this you clean your teeth in subconsciously, and you get where you plan your day and you get on with your day and do whatever you want to, but you're not thinking about buying toothpaste every time you're cleaning your teeth. So with the pandemic and the inability for people to go and visit their dentists and get help from experts, consumers have started spending more on toothpaste because they want a better quality product on an everyday basis, because they're not going to be going and seeing their dentist as often as they did in the past. So this changed the way you look at you're willing to spend for toothpaste. This changes the way you of what you need from that product category. And this comes from using elicitation exercises by putting we flip the questions by depriving consumers of choices. When we deprived them of choices, they were able to defend their thinking by saying, hey, hang on a second, if I don't have this is what I'll miss out on. And that tells you that consumers are willing to spend more, and there is this underlying fear because their life is not the same as it used to be in the past.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, awesome. If anyone here has any questions, feel free to share them in the chat, and we'll ask Bala to address them a bit later. Yeah, so we're coming we have just a few questions here for you, Bala.
Sure.
One of the things that we sometimes hear when it comes to online or mobile qual is that this is something niche, something that you need, that's only applicable to certain types of projects. Can you address that kind of pushback from insight professionals or from brands?
Yeah. I wish I had $1 every time I got asked that question. We always hear this from clients who've not been doing a lot of online qual, which they will say, all this sounds really great. Let me go away and find a project that suits. And it's a hard situation to be in, because with the luxury that we've had of doing research in so many different categories, we know that it works in almost all situations. We do qualitative research with IT decision makers of Fortune 500 enterprise grade companies. At the same time, we've done work with millennials who are looking to shop for clothing, and everything else in between. Online qual is not a leap of faith. It is a migration, and you can do that in bite sizes. You don't have to completely become the TikTok generation to do online qual. You can retain your brand essence. You can retain the good old principles of qual and still connect with the different target groups. But what you essentially are doing is making it a little bit easier for your consumers to respond to. You're reaching these outliers as well as your mass market by trying to understand what's making them tick and what's making them change.
Cool. Yeah, thanks for that. And then so just to wrap up our Q&A here, what are some things to avoid? So maybe some things from kind of like traditional qual research that don't really apply as much when it comes to online or mobile?
Yeah, sure. So migrating what you've been doing traditionally and force fitting that in the online world doesn't always give you the right result. Recognizing that you're using a different medium requires you to adapt your way of working as well. You've got to adapt the style of questions. You've got to adapt the way you approach it. You've got to adapt your strategy so that you get the most out of that medium. And let me use an example that we use in our business quite regularly. Can you, the question is, can you do a 30-minute questionnaire on mobile? Yes, technically, absolutely you can. It's just you just stick those questions in and you do that. But what's the likelihood of a consumer sitting there doing a survey for 30 minutes on their mobile? It's just not practical. That mobile as a medium is about quick responses. Think of the way you use a mobile phone. You will have a talk track from Wednesday going with your friends to plan for your weekend. You'll have messages back and forth. You might talk to your mom on at the same time, and have conversations about something, and you'll be talking to your work colleagues on SMS as well, giving quick responses. And that's the behavior that people have on mobile phones. So slapping on a 30-minute survey on a mobile phone is just not right, because the medium expects you to connect differently. You can't, if you're sending someone an SMS message, you would not say, "Dear Kelvin, remember in our last discussion, we had this, can you please elaborate on," you don't use that language. The mobile expects you to be a little more casual, to the point. And if you're one of the younger generation, using punctuation in mobile phone is seen as being too aggressive. There are all these rules that exist with the medium, and I'm just using that to prove to prove a point, which is, when you migrate to online qual, you've got to respect that medium and where you're connecting with the consumer, and therefore adapt the existing techniques and methodology so that you get the most out of the consumer in that medium.
Yeah, love that. Okay, sweet. Just an anonymous question here. Since you have experience working both with companies in Australia, but also in North America, can you talk about some of the differences that you've seen in terms of, what Australian brands need to be thinking about now that COVID is kind of just ramping up there?
Yeah, well, I hope it's wrapping up. I don't know if it is, but the one, I'm fortunate this way that that I operate in both camps. I do a lot of work with clients in North America. Also, I'm doing work here in Australia, and it's almost and this is just a qualitative feel, but it almost feels like what North America has gone through is what Australia is going through at the moment. So, in the sense, the opening up of the markets, the initial influx of behavior, and then finding the new normal, or the new strategies that consumers have embraced, are things that are bubbling up now here in Australia. People are thinking about making sea changes, and I was working with an insurance company here, and we were talking to consumers to understand what kind of changes are they making. So households with multiple cars are getting rid of one of their cars so that they can, because they're not driving as much as they did. People have had a negative impact on their income, and they are thinking about moving to a cheaper town so that they can cut down on their costs. And all of these behaviors are just coming up now or emerging now here in Australia, but what we can learn from is how these strategies have unfolded in North America a few months earlier, and we know what kind of consumer behaviors are here to stick and what kind of consumer behaviors are probably just reactive and probably just temporary. So I would look and as an Australian client, I would look at the North American consumer behavior quite closely because in many ways they have gone through this pandemic and they've gone through the changes and formed their behaviors a few months earlier than we have here in Australia.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's, like obviously the COVID pandemic is not over here yet in North America, but yeah, I think the fact that some of the changes happen here a lot sooner, the lockdowns, all that stuff, definitely worth looking into. One important component of online qual, or just qual in general, is videos. So one question that I got here is if you have any tips or best practices in terms of how to get videos, quality videos from your participants.
Yeah. So collecting videos is a bit like when you start doing online forums and discussions with your consumers. The general trend that you see is there are a lot more lurkers in your online qual before there are actual participants, because people want to see what others are talking about, but they are not comfortable yet to start talking themselves in the form of video. Or in the same case, same behavior with discussions as well. So it is a slow burn. You have to stay at it. And once people realize that you are regularly asking for feedback or by video, they get comfortable. The idea, then it starts becoming an expectation, and that idea resonates with them. And you start seeing the number of videos that you collect that keeps going up. But at your formative stage of exploring videos, you're better off collecting feedback on things that are not personal. So it's not about what why do you do what you do kind of question is fairly evolved. But you've got to, if you ask about, have you seen this ad and what can you give us your thoughts on a particular ad, it's easier for consumers to react because they're talking about something else. And the chances of you collecting video and putting people in a comfort zone to talk about something which is a little more casual and it's not about them is easier for consumers to respond to. And you end up collecting a lot of videos that way. And it takes a little bit of time to then get to a place where you can then start asking, so tell me, why did you buy the brand that you did? And tell me, show us your wardrobe, show us your pantry. Jumping in with that question as your first engagement as a brand or as a face is probably, you're not going to get as many videos as you would hope to, or you would get videos from people who've done this before and are comfortable doing that, and the mass majority will still prefer to respond via text. So there's that part about collecting the data, and there's the other aspect, which is about how to analyze the data. You've got to have that in plan. You've got to have that as a plan when you're asking the question as well. The analysis part goes to the good old qualitative principles of analyzing open-ended text. So you've got to have a plan on how you organize the data to analyze it, and because you don't really have the luxury to watch 500 videos. and while you might end up collecting them. So, have a plan and strategy using the good old qualitative content analysis principles to analyze the data that you collect so that you can then end up with a video that is powerful for you to use to substantiate the other learnings that you have.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I mean, in terms of what you were saying, in terms of not asking for super personal questions to begin with, I think that kind of comes back to one of the core conversational research principles, which is, you have to build trust from the onset. And then, obviously, like eventually you can get to those more personal questions.
Yeah.
So I want to be respectful of everyone's time. So I think we'll cut it off there. Maybe we'll do like a part 2 a bit later on. But Bala, I'm just curious, do you have any last minute thoughts, closing remarks, that sort of thing?
Yeah, I just would like to say that doing online qualitative research is not turning off your focus groups and switching over to online qualitative research completely. That's probably too big a jump, but recognizing that there are lots of applications and techniques that you can use in the online world, and dabbling with a small, more purposeful elements of your project. So continue to do what you do in the qualitative space, but try smaller aspects of online qual, helps you build as an insights buyer, as an insights practitioner. It helps you build your confidence, and what you need to focus on is recognizing what it can do and what it can't do at the same time. Once you know what it can't do, you become a little more comforted in trialing that over and over again.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, absolutely. So just to share some of my takeaways as well from this conversation, that the importance of going in with your best questions, kind of like flipping the funnel, as you called it, Bala. I love definitely like respecting the medium as well. I think that's super important. You can't just take what you're doing offline and put it on mobile. Then have to respect the medium for sure. And then building trust in order to get videos, and so you can get more personal at the end as well. So those are great takeaways. Thanks again, Bala, for your time, and thanks everyone for holding on. If you have any questions, please feel free to shoot us an email, and we'll definitely send the recording as well, because I've noticed some people logged in a bit later. So we'll share the recording with you as well a bit later. But in the meantime, that's it for us, and hopefully you guys can join us next week when we talk to Cam Edmonds from the Canadian Workplace Culture Index to talk a little bit about employee engagement. Thanks again, everyone. Have a good day.
Thank you. Bye.